Hello guys, have you ever built a Spring Boot REST API where one endpoint returns a list, another returns an object, and the error response is a just plain string? For example, let's say if one API returns 200 status code with user data and another returns user not found, just plain string. This works. When we implement a large application, it will become very messy. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to create a standard API response structure using a generic DTO with just three fields. So what three fields they are? They are a status, which will hold the HTTP status code, and the message like user details fetched, user details updated, or whatever we want to show on the UI that we can add there. And the data, the which data, like let's say if we want to return the list of users, then that data will have the list of users in that in the JSON format. And by the end of this video, all your API will follow the same clean response format. So stay till the end. So in the previous video, we have installed the STS and we have installed the Java as well. So before moving forward, we have to check like what are the installation we have done. So open this command prompt using run window, and you can type the CMD. Now here you have to check the Java version which currently active on your system. So let's say I have added Java hyphen version. So I'm getting the Java version as 17.0.20. And before moving forward, let's check the Spring Initializr. So you have to go on the Google and search for the Spring Initializr.io. Click on the first link, and so click on spring start.spring.io. And if you see here, we have the last Java version at 17. So you have to pick that only. And the Spring version, we can say Spring Boot version here, we can say is 4.1.0. So if you want to create any project, you can create directly here from like just adding dependency. Let me search for the web. Once you select any dependency, you can click on the generate that file. But we are not going to do like this. We are going to start with STS. So once the installation is done, you have to go on in that directory and just open that file. You can do the double click on that, and you can just click on the open like this. So it will start your STS like this. And once you are there, you can see like, so we have to select the directory, whatever we have created. So I have created in that D drive, project YT and workspace STS. So just click on the launch. And as you can see, it started to load. So once it is loaded, you will get something like this, like create a Java project, create a Maven project, create a new Spring Starter project, or import the Spring Getting Started content. So here we are going to create a new Spring Starter project and just maximizing it. So this is the whole window, and let me create a new Spring Starter project from here. As you can see, it is using the service URL start.spring.io, which is nothing but which we have just opened on the Google, which is start.spring.io. So it is using the same thing. So now go on the STS and just put your project name. So I'm going to use the REST hello because we are going to implement the first application. So I'm going to say hello to this and just removing that hyphen one. Now you can use Gradle, Kotlin, but I'm going to use the Maven here. And packaging, I'm going to use jar. Language is Java, and version we are going to use 17 because 17 is currently I'm using in my machine. So just putting the group ID like slash code, and the artifact ID keep it like this only. Packaging I'm going to use as slash code dot public. Okay. Now we have to just say next here, and while adding dependency, you can see that from above we are able to get the Spring Boot version. So I'm going to use the 4.1.0, and from here you can search dependency, which is web, search for the web, and you have to select the Spring Web dependency from this side. So if you see, if you hover here, you will get information like build the webs including RESTful application using Spring MVC uses the Apache Tomcat as default embedded container. The same information we got from here as well. Like this, the same information you can see here as well. So yeah, now click on the next and it will start to download the files for starter.zip, and we have to click on the finish. Now if you see here, it is started to import content from there, and it will just take few minutes to download the content. Yeah, so if you see the nothing is in going on here as in progress bar, so we can say like download is completed. Now just expand the project and we'll go through one by one on each directory structure. So I will start from the below. This is the pom.xml. So whatever the dependency we are going to add, we are going to add in this pom.xml file. So the dependency which we have added right now here, which is a Spring Boot starter web MVC. This dependency we have added, and default MVC added by like for the test. And if you see, this is the plugin which can be used while we do the build of this application, right? And then this for the Maven, this we can skip. This is for help.md, this also we can skip. The target is like when we are going to create a build of that, it will have the this build file, which is the jar file. So this for this time we can ignore, but we'll see in the later. And if you see the src, this is the directory structure. We don't need to do anything. The Maven dependency, so Spring Boot is opinionated view, like it is going to have the opinionated kind of a thing. So it will going to download all the dependency which we require to implement any web MVC application. And if you see the JRE system library, it is going to use my machine Java, which is Java SE17. And if you see the location is also using from there like eclipse.tm JDK 17.0.8 hyphen hotspot lib, then this is the jar location. So it is going to use from a local machine. And if you are writing any test cases, you have to write it here. And the resource is like we have the application or property right now. So if you see, we have the application name as rest hyphen hello. And here if you see, we have in the main function in the src slash main slash java, we have one package like com.example.demo, and inside that we can see we have a default class which is the main Spring Boot application annotated class from where the application will get started. It will going to all the build up, and if you see, click on that. So this Spring Boot application annotation is the combination of enable auto configuration and component scan and auto configurations. So these three annotation it is going to use behind the scene. So it will going to start the application from here. Now let's start to implement our controller class. So now let's create a controller class. So let me click here on the package name, and you have to click as new and click on the class. So the name of my class I will say as a controller, user controller, and here after demo I will put here controller. So whatever controller I'm going to create, I'm going to have in controller class. Okay, and we need one more class which is my user DTO. So I will create user like this, and instead of controller I will put here as DTO. Okay, and now what I want one service class. So let me create one service class as well. So click here like this, and instead of DTO put in package name as service and create a user service like this. Okay, so that's how we have created the file which required for implementation. Now let's start to write one REST API here. So before doing that, we have to put some of the things like in application property, we can use the different ports. So I'm going to use server.port, and instead of 8080, I'm going to use 8081. So default port is 8080. So I'm going to use here as a servlet dot context dot path. So here we are going to say as API. So this will be going to add by default in my all API. So let me open this controller class and let's close everything from here. So let's start to write our first REST API. And before that, we need to initialize, like we need to add the properties in the user file. So let me go in that the user DTO, and we need to add like a private long ID, because the ID should be long here. And I'm going to use a private string as name, and private int age. So the age will be integer. Now you have to do the right click so that we can create a getters and setters. So click do the right click and go inside the source and create getters and setters. Click on that, generate getters and setters, and click all and generate it. Okay, now we need also that parameterized constructor and default constructor. So we need to go inside the source and again constructor using fields. So click on generate of all. Now do the right click again and go on the source and generate constructor from the superclass. So click like this, generate, and remove the extra lines which are added here. So just remove that super from here. So this is my default constructor, and this one is my parameterized constructor, and this all the getters and setters we have generated now. Now go inside the controller and put here like at that rest controller, because we are going to create a rest controller here. So put annotation and do the control space so that you will get suggestion to import. And now we are going to create one function which is public list of users. So it will going to return me the users, and the name of the function will be get users like this. And for time being I'm going to return null here, and like this. Now just import whatever the dependency we here needed here. So that is imported. Now I'm going to have one reference of the user service. So I will say private user service and user service like this. And we can do auto add here like this. Okay, now let's replace this user service, this null with user service function, which will I will add one more function here like get users. So right now we don't have that function, so let's create that function. So here is this function. For now we are not going to call database, so I'm going to create a list to mock the database table. So we'll add to do like not doing with database. In future, if you want, let me know in the comments. I will add one tutorial to how we can fetch the value from the database. Now let's create a list. So I will say like private final users, list of users, right? So it will be list of users. So it will be list of users, and I will say the users name here like this. I will say new array list of. Then inside that we are going to just initialize this. So say list of. So here we are going to add the list of list of users. So click like this. You have to say like new user, and let me add two more, add some values here. So first will be the ID, then name, then age, right? Now let's create one more again, and here we are done with this, right? So we have created a list which will have the three users in that. Now just return that list of users like this. So I'm just going to return whatever we have initialized, or we can say like return this dot users. So this is the way like we have created, but one more thing is pending here right now. Like we have not added any mapping to that. So what I will do on my REST API, I will say request mapping, because this will be the common for all the method which we are going to add in this one. So I will say request mapping in bracket, I will say users like this, and I will say here like get mapping. So to get all the user details, I'm not going to add any mapping, because we'll say like if anything comes as user, we are just going to call this method, right? So now let's run the application. So you have to do right click on this application and select as run as Spring Boot app. So let's see. what we get in the console. So if you want, you can do double click here and you can see the logs in the consoles, whatever it is doing right now. Oops, so application got failed. So it is saying that a failed user service in user controller required a bean type user service that could not be found. So I think it is checking for user controller, whatever we have doing auto add, but it is not able to find the object of that. So let me see in the user service. Oh, we forgot. I think we have to add here add service, because what it will do when we add add that service annotation, it will going to initialize the object inside the IOC container, and then via dependency injection it will inject that object inside this. So I think now we will not get that error. So let me run again as a Spring Boot app. So as you can see, application is running properly now on port number 8081 and context path as /API. So the /API is coming from here. If you see in the application or property file, we have set that servlet context path as /API. Based on our requirement, we can put anything like, let's say, public, or let's say any admin kind of thing. So that will be considered a context path, but I'm going to put here as API. So let's go in the Postman and see if we are able to get the response from this API. So I'm just using localhost 8081 API/users. Okay. Just click on send. And as you can see, we got the response. So this is our the first API, which will give us the all these information stored in this one, right? Now let's start to implement another API. Like we will pass the ID in the URL and we'll get that specific user information, right? So let me duplicate it. So what we are going to do here, we will just pass the ID like this, and I want to get the user information for the specific user. So let me name it as user by ID, right? And when I will click send like this, I want to get the specific user information. So let's say as of now, we are able to get all these users. Now, once I pass the user ID, I want to get that specific information. So as you can see, for now, we are getting 404, but let me create a API for that. So we have to go inside the controller and first stop the existing running application. Okay, so let me go inside the user controller. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to just copy from the above, the get mapping. And here we can say like it will be the get mapping only, but I will add here in curly braces as user ID, right? So we have added user ID here, and I'm going to update the function. And if you know, like now we are not going to return the overall like list of user, but we are going to return the single user here. So in this, like we have to use the path variable and just import it. Okay. And it will be long because we have kept the ID as a long. And let's create one function, get user by ID, and pass this ID. Now as we know, we don't have this function right now. So let's create that function. So the function is created. Now let me add the logic for this. So we are going to use the stream API here. So we have the users. So I'm going to just say return users dot stream. Okay. Now we have to add filter here. So let me just put in separate line. So what I will do, filter. Then we will get single user, and that will match like user dot get ID equal to ID which we are getting from the UI. And what we will do, we will say like here find first, whatever the first match, just give me that. If not found, let's say if that ID is not present in my this, so what we'll do, or else we will return null from this side, right? So like this, we have added our logic using stream API to get to find the match, and whatever the first, return that. If not found, then return null. Okay, so let's execute the program now, and run as Spring Boot app. Okay, so I think, okay, it is asking for save, so just click on OK to save. Yeah, so application is running now on 8081 port. So let me go Postman and just hit this API again. So if you see, we got internal server error. Let me see what is the error. So it's saying like required URL template variable ID, not method parameter type long. Yeah, so like we are getting this issue because of we have kept it user ID here. So if we are have we have different ID like name like this, so we have to put like this, like path variable user ID will map to the long ID here, right? So just close shut down this application and restart it again. So just I'm shut down, doing the shutdown of this. Shutdown is completed. Let me start the application again. So that will be the case if you are using a different variable in the path variable, and we are using, if you're using different variable name as here. So you have to do the mapping of this, right? Yeah, so as you can see, application started now. Let me go once again on the Postman and hit this API. So as you can see, I got the response for 1. Let me change the ID as 3. So 3 is also present. So 3 is also present here. Let me put the ID which is not present. So we will get null on the UI. So yeah, the status score is 200 and we are not able to get anything here, right? So how like this we have implemented get by ID user information, this API. Let's move to the next one. So now we are going to implement the post API, which will create a record inside the list. So let's stop the application now and just copy from the I think the first one, because for the post also we will not have any mapping, just a method will change. So instead of get, we are going to put here as a post mapping and do like this, so that control and space, so that we'll get suggestion and import it. Now let me remove this list from here and we'll return whatever the user which we have inserted. So I will rename this function name as create user, and inside that user service we will make the function as create user, right? Now, and yeah, we need that whatever user is passing from the UI, so we need a request body as an annotation here. And what we need here, like we need the user information, whatever the user wants to update, so they have to provide. So that's why we have added like at the request body user, then user type of object we want from the UI. So let's pass this user from here and create this function now inside the user service. Okay, now what we have to do, we, as we are using the like list only here, so we are going to use users dot get, sorry, users dot add, right? Add and whatever the users we got from here, and just return that user from here, right? So this is how we can create a user when you are using the list. But when we will do that table operations, like how we can insert, that will be that we will see in the next video or separate video. So let me execute this application and let's see what is the output of this. Are we able to getting the record inserted in the list? Okay, so let me run this application again as a Spring Boot app. So as you can see, the application running properly on port number 8081. Now let me go on the Postman and let's create one more method from just duplicating it. So yeah, now I'm going to use that one which we have copied. Now let me rename this function, sorry, rename this API as create user, right? And we don't need to add anything here. So just change the method as post, and inside the body you have to select like raw, And from the, if you see here drop down, from the text we have to select the JSON and just pass the exact object whatever we are getting. Let's say if I'm getting let me call one get by user and copy this JSON object and just use that in the post of this, and let me change the value. So let's change the value as 4, and let me update the name and age as 26 and just send it. So as you can see, record has been created and we got 200 response code from the UI, from the API. Now if you search for the 4 now, you will able to get that 4 from here, right? Let me add one more record. Let's say I'm adding 5, and I have updated the name, and let me update the age as 28. Now just send, and if you see, let me search for the 5 as well. We are able to get the 5, but if I am able to search for the 6, we are not able to get any record from there, right? So just this is the third API which we have implemented, which is the post API. So now let's create a put API, like we can update the user information. So let's stop the application now and copy the post API directly. So what we need here, we need to pass that ID for which, like for which we want to do the update. So let me update this put mapping here, and the name of the function as update user. We'll get the user directly from here, and we need that URL, like that ID in the URL. So we need to do like this, the same we did for like for this get mapping of this get user by ID. So now I'm going to have like this. Okay, let me update the function. Sorry for that. And let me add the path variable here, because it will be going to access the ID used on the path variable long. I'm going to use the same name because I don't want to create an issue again with that. So here we can say update user, and we're passing the user, and we need to also pass the ID, which ID we want to update, right? So like this, let's create that this function in the service class. So let me create the function. So before updating any record, we need to find out the actual object in from the from the database, or we can say the list. So let's find that object. So I will say user existing user, right, equals to get user by ID. So here we are passing the user ID to get the existing user. And what we'll do existing user. Like as of now, we only have two fields, right? If we have more fields, then we will create a separate function to mapping those records. So now I will do set name as user, which is coming user for updated user, get name. And the same we will do with age. So let me update this as age, set age. Exit set age is equal to, sorry, get age of the user coming from the UI, and return the existing user, because as of now, like we can say user information is updated, so we can send existing user itself directly. And we'll add some validation. Let's say that ID is not present, or if anything happened like that, so we can add those validation later. Now let me restart, let me start the application now, and let's see. So let's run a Spring Boot app. So as you can see, the application running on 8081 port number. Let me go on the Postman and do the copy of this post API. So just doing the duplicate of that, and I will rename it as update user, right? And we need to pass the ID, which ID we want to update. So I'm going to update the first, and the name, method name will be as put. In body, we will pass the age and name, right? So remove the ID from here because it is not required, as we are passing the ID in the URL itself. So first, before updating, let's check that what is the name and everything, like name and age of that ID1 user. So the name of that user is Ganesh and age is 23. So what I want now, I want to update the name as Ramesh and age as, let's say, 32. Now just send it. So I got the bad request. Let me see what is the bad request now. So I think it wants the, okay, it's on the ID because we not excluded that. So let's pass the ID for time being. Yeah, we'll see how we can resolve that. But let's add the ID here. So yeah, so we are able to get the updated information. Now let me select like get the user by ID and just, so yeah, we got the information updated as Ramesh and 32 age. And if you see in the users, let me do the select for all the users. So if you see, we got record one ID, which is the ID we're having one, got updated with the username as Ramesh and age as 32. So we are done with put API. Now we are going to implement the last API of this tutorial, which is the delete API. So we are just going to copy this put API because we want the ID of that, what user we want to delete. So let me copy, I have just copied that and rename that like we want to do delete mapping. So update it like this. Now change the function name as delete user, and this will be void. We'll see if we can do anything, but for now we will make it as void because we don't want to return anything from here. So remove this request body from this, and we need to pass this one and change the function name as delete user. Okay, so this function is not going to return anything, so we'll remove the return from this, and let's create this delete user function from in the service class. Now going to create that function. Now we need to, because we are going to use the list, so we need to find out the matching list, and we need to remove that. So what I will do here, let me go inside the users, then remove. If we are going to use the predicate here, and we'll iterate that user, where we'll say like user dot get ID is matching with the user ID which we getting from the UI. So it will return that user from the list, right? So let's start the application and see if it is working properly or not. So running as Spring Boot app. Yeah, so as you can see, application is running on 8081 port. Now we need to test that one. So let me copy the user by ID and let it duplicate and rename it as delete user. And we need to update the get method to delete method here. And let's see like how many users we are getting in the users API. So just calling this API again. So we are able to get 3 users. Now I'm going to delete the user which having ID as 1, right? So just call this API, delete API. And as you like see, like we are getting 200 here. And if I again hit the API, I will get only 2 users. That's correct. Let me delete 3 as well. So deleting 3 as well. And if we see here, we are able to get only 1 record now. So only user ID having 2, we're able to see here. So like this, we have completed all API, and we'll see some of the best practices what we can do here. So like this, we have created all these 5 API: get users, get user by ID, create user, update user, delete user. but there are something missing, like how we get a uniform structure of this response. And let's say if we want to delete user if that id is not present, or if we want to update the user for which that id is not present, user id is not present in the database, it is already deleted, that scenario can happen. So we need to add some validations. And let's say if you're calling the get users if and no users present in that, and if you're calling get user by id if that user id users is not present in that list or table, so in that case we need to return a response that we need to handle it. And the actual response structure which we have started in the beginning, like we will have the status, then message, then the exact data what we want to return to the UI. So we'll see. So as I promised, like we are going to return a structured response. So for that we need to create one DTO object. So let's create that. So I am going to create a class which will like API response, in which form we want to send the response on the UI. So let's create that class, and we are going to have a three fields, but it will going to accept a type which is a T type generic. So let's keep it like that only. So we are going to create a private int, and here we are going to have the status which will have like whatever the HTTP response code, it can be 204 or not for 400 or 500. And let's create a message which we want to send on the UI. So let me create like this, and let's have the data type. So that data is coming as whatever type we are sending from the calling function. So let's create like this, and create a getter send setters for that. So T is kind of generic. It can have the string, object, anything like JSON node, anything in that. So like that we can, if we don't know the type, we can define like this, and this T is coming from here itself. Type is coming from here itself. So let's again generate the constructor using fields here, because we don't want to use the getter sentence every time. We can directly create an object for that, and let's create as default constructor again using the source. So using superclass, and let's do the generate of that, remove everything from here, and let's, so it's done. We have added three fields, and the default constructor, then parameterized constructor, then all the getter setters we can see here as below. Now inside the controller we are going to add one by one what how we can send the response to the UI. So what we'll do here, inside the controller, when we are fetching all these information, we need to send like all these information, success message, or whatever you want to throw. So what I will do here, I will make it like this response entity, because we are going to send the response. So I will say response entity of which type, API service, right? In API response, and the type will be here, my will be that user, list of users. So I am going to put it here. Let me put, sorry for that, let me put like this. So now we need to update this response like return type. So first we need to create a API response structure kind of thing. So let me create something for this. So let me create, copy this, and let me create one value for that response. And I will say here like new API response, because we are having the constructors. So we are going to use that. And I will say here HTTP status code dot OK, because we are going to return 200. So I will say OK dot this will be value, because we are going to send a integer value. And the message which we want to send, that users fetched successfully. So I will say user fetched successfully, like this, right? And here we are going to pass the service which will be my user service, because this type we want to send, dot get users. So like this we can say, and we can return that response entity like this. So I will say return response entity of I will select return response entity dot okay, right? Dot okay, and inside that we need to pass the body. So which body I want to pass? I want to pass the response like this. So if you see, we are able to solve this response structure, and let me put the single quotes here, right? So like this we can do. So if you see, we have something like this: the status code, then the message we want to send, and the actual value we want to send to the UI, right? So we'll do the same thing for others as well. So let me check one more case for this. Now we need to update here like this. So instead of list of user, I'm going to have only users. So let me remove that list from this. And again, we need to create the responses structure like this. So just copying that, but we will have to change. Now let me update this. Now let's have it in object first. So this is my user, which is coming from the UI, from the coming from the database or the list. And I will check, like, are we checking any null condition? Yeah, we are having the null check. So what I will do, I will check if that user is not found, right? So if user equals to null, then we have to update the response. So let me create a response, something like this first. It will be type of user, not list of user. And what I will do here, I will say like it is not found, right? So we will do response equals to new API response. And here we are going to use HTTP status dot not found dot value. So it will going to give me the end. I will say user ID is not present, right? And inside that, if we are not able to find anything, in that case, we'll say null in this section. And let's say, let me update it as null. It is not required right now. Else, if we found something, then we need to update the response like this. So I will say here, so user details found, user details paged successfully. And here we'll say okay value because we got the match. So I will say okay here. And here I will say the user which we already fetched, and I will remove everything from here. And let's copy the response entity like this from the above. So for the get user by ID, we did like this. Now let's run the application and see for these two. So let me run this application as a Spring Boot app. And if you see here, application started, and let me search for the users API. So if you see, we got 200 status code, user fetched successfully, and we got all the list of users in the data node, right? And there is one more user by ID. Let me search for that. Let me send that API. So if you see, we got the 200 and user details fetched successfully. Data is for that specific user. Let me put the ID which is not present in my table or list. So if you see, we got 404 and user ID is not present and response data as null. But if you see that we got 200 here, which is not okay because we need 404. So what I will do, so instead of doing response entity dot okay like this, we are going to use something here. So what I will do here, I will say like return response entity, and let's remove that. I will say status and HTTP status dot, sorry, not accepted, it will be not found, not found, and then body dot response, right? So we are able to send the response like this. Now for this one, we can put directly, cut this and put directly from here. So like this we can do. Let me start the application once again and we'll see if we get the exact response structure for this as well. So I've just started the application, and if you see, let me read it again. We got 404, and here also we got 404. So now this is okay. And let me search for the ID which is already present. So if you see, we got 200 and user details fetched successfully. Now let me complete for others and I will share the final result with you all. So like this, get all users and get user by ID. I have updated all the remaining API with API response. Like you can see, for create user, I'm going to have API response as response, and API response of user in generic, and HTTP status has created with value, user created successfully with message, and created user. So whatever the created user, we'll going to add here, and response in status we are going to send like HTTP status dot created dot body dot response, right? Same for put mapping. We are before updating that, we are checking that if that updated user, like whatever the updated user, if you see here, I'm going to check if existing user is null, means that id is not present, then we are going to return the null. So that null I'm checking on the controller side, like that controller side we are going to check if updated user is null, means that that id was not found. So we are going to update as, like we are going to send the message as not found and user id is not present in the database or table, right? And the responsive we are saying that not found, and body then response whatever we are setting here. Same for, let's say if that updated records is updated, then we are going to put the http status code as okay and user details updated successfully with updated user, whatever the user we are able to get after updating. And while deleting, we are also checking that if that id is present or not. If that id is present, then we are calling that get user by id to check if the get the user object. If that user object is null, then we are sending that not found, same as above. And if that is present, if that is we are able to delete that record, then we are able to send, we are sending that message as user deleted successfully, like this. So to minimize the time, I have done this this thing, but you can try and you can let me know if you have anything, if you are able to find anything, any issue. I'm ready to always help you guys. Now let me run this application and let's see all the API which we have implemented till now with the actual structured response, which we can say like status, then message, and then whatever you want to send in the UI. So my application is starting now. Now, if you see, my application started on port number 8081. Now let me start with the first API, which will get all the users record. So let's hit the API now. Yeah, so if you're able to see the response status as 200, message as user fetched successfully, and data, we are able to get the 3 users. And let me search for specific ID. That ID is not present, the 5 is not present, then we are getting the 4, not 4 in like this. And here as well, we are getting status as 404 and user ID is not present, right? And let me fetch for the specific ID. So I'm putting the 3 here, and let's see, we are able to get the status code 200 and message as user details fetched successfully. Data will be like 3 Suresh and 34, status as 200, right? So we done with these two API. Now let me create do for the post. So if you're adding the 5, we are able to see that user created successfully with 201 status code, which is created. So 201 act as a created. Now if we again fetch the user information, we'll get 4 record, right? The fifth one is the Nita. Now let me update the record. So I'm going to update the record as 5. Nita will be updated to Ramesh. Uh, Yeah, now let me update that record. So updating also we are checking if that ID is present or not. So we need to also pass the ID here as well in the URL. So sending that, we got the messages user details updated successfully. And if I'm able to fetch the record for the 5, I can see the record is updated. So we'll get the Ramesh and 32. If you see here earlier, we were able to get the 5 ID users as Nitha. Now it is updated. Let's say if we are updating the record which is not present, that ID is not present, we can send it like this and we are able to get 404 as record not found. Same case for delete. Let's say if that ID is not present which we want to delete. So let me put 8 here and we can see that user ID is not present 404, and here also we are getting 404. Let me put 5 here, which is for Suresh. Now you can see the user records deleted successfully. We got a status code 200 and status is 200. So like this, we can have the uniform response structure for the API, REST API, and that's how we implemented everything. Let me know if you have anything, any doubt, and if you can optimize this thing. Like I know that there is optimization chances, like we are calling this user id is not present multiple places, like not found here, they're not found here in this update user, they're not found again in the delete user. So we can optimize it. We can create a function, generate function, which will call this whenever we are getting anything like this, we can call this function to return the exact message. So this can be done. That is assignment for you guys. You can try and let me know if you have anything for me. Have a good day and thanks for being here till the last. Thank you so much.